Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, share your insights in the comments, and subscribe to keep up with our newest narratives. Never did I imagine I would be caught in such a predicament, grappling with my devotion to my husband while confronting the disquieting truth of recent events. Yet, existence often leads you into unforeseen instances, moments that compel you to reevaluate all that you believed regarding trust, respect, and your own identity. It began on a crisp autumn evening. My husband, Mark, had extended an invitation to a few colleagues for an evening meal. It was quite typical. Mark had been with his firm for almost 2 decades, and throughout that time I had gotten to know a number of his colleagues quite well. Some had turned into friends, individuals with whom I'd share holiday cards and engage in light conversation at company gatherings. Yet among them Nathan stood apart. Nathan had only recently started at the company, having come on board roughly a year back. He was in his early 40s, younger than Mark, exuding confidence and an undeniable charm that effortlessly drew people in. He possessed a unique talent for transforming each dialogue into a shared understanding, where every praise resonated like a whispered secret intended solely for you. I hadn't really considered it until that evening. A lovely dinner was on the agenda. The aroma of rosemary and garlic wafted through the house, emanating from the roasted chicken in the oven, while the flickering candlelight cast a warm, inviting glow throughout the space. Mark thrived in the moment, sharing laughter and engaging in lively conversation with his colleagues, while I embraced the role of the attentive host, ensuring drinks were replenished and everyone felt at ease. Nathan showed up slightly after the rest, clutching a bottle of wine and wearing his trademark confident smile. "Hope I'm not too late to the gathering," he remarked, offering me the wine as his fingers lingered over mine just a touch longer than needed. I brushed aside the fleeting unease, attributing it to my own fancy. The night unfolded, and with each sip, the discussions became more animated. Mark was engrossed in a conversation with his boss regarding an upcoming project, while I was caught in a dialogue with Nathan. He exuded his usual charm, yet tonight, there lingered an undercurrent in his words, something weightier, more incisive. "You know, Emily," he said, his voice flowing effortlessly. "It must be noted that Mark is quite fortunate." I chuckled softly, dismissing the remark with a wave of my hand. "I like to believe that I'm fortunate as well." Nathan leaned in a bit, his eyes unwavering. "If I were in his shoes, I can't imagine ever wanting to be apart from you." There was that undeniable change in atmosphere. A knot formed in my stomach. I suggested with a casual tone, aiming to shift the direction of our discussion. Yet Nathan stood his ground. As the evening unfolded, his remarks grew increasingly audacious, seemingly innocuous comments that, when assembled, revealed a narrative of something much more deliberate. A lingering touch on my arm, a glance that weighed heavily, a soft remark whispered just close enough to my ear, sending an unwelcome shiver down my spine. I reassured myself that I was being overly dramatic. Perhaps it was the wine. Perhaps it was merely Nathan's innate allure. As the evening drew to a close and Mark escorted the final guests out, Nathan lingered for a brief moment. He expressed how enjoyable it was to spend time together this evening. His voice had dropped, and his expression was a mystery. "I look forward to the opportunity to do this again. Perhaps, only the two of us at some point." My breath hitched. For a brief instant, doubt crept in about whether I had truly understood him. Yet the expression in his gaze, the subtle curve of his mouth, revealed that I indeed had. Before I had the chance to speak, Mark came back, giving Nathan a hearty clap on the back. "Happy to see you here, my friend. Stay safe on the road." Nathan merely smiled, his gaze meeting mine for a fleeting moment before he turned and exited through the door. I remained motionless, my heart racing wildly. Did that truly just occur? I hardly took note of Mark's voice as he secured the place for the evening, his tone casual and oblivious. That seemed to go quite smoothly, wouldn't you agree? It appeared that all were enjoying themselves. I mustered a smile. Indeed, it was a delightful evening. As I lay in bed that night, gazing at the ceiling, an unsettling sensation lingered, as if something had irrevocably changed. A shift had occurred. And beneath the surface, I sensed that this was far from finished. The following morning, I awoke to an unusual weight pressing down on my chest. The house lay in stillness, save for the faint buzz of Mark in the kitchen, likely preparing his customary Saturday morning brew. I reassured myself that I was overanalyzing the situation, that Nathan was merely being his typical, excessively charming self, and I had interpreted his words too deeply. Yet, despite my efforts to push it away, the echo of his voice, the intensity in his gaze, the way his fingers brushed against mine, clung to me like an unshakable shadow. I set my thoughts aside and rose from the bed, enveloping myself in my robe before making my way downstairs. "Morning, hon," Mark said with a smile, offering me a steaming mug of coffee. "Did you get a good night's rest?" Indeed, I wasn't truthful as I took a sip. He was oblivious to my pause, seamlessly transitioning to his next idea. "Oh, just so you know, Nathan sent me a text this morning. He mentioned that he thoroughly enjoyed himself last night and is eager to meet up again in the near future." I almost sputtered, my coffee everywhere. Mark appeared oblivious. I suggested that we arrange a double date. Perhaps we could enjoy a meal at that new steakhouse in the heart of downtown. Pause. Every fiber of my being urged me to decline, to fabricate an excuse, any justification to steer clear of sharing a space with Nathan once more. What was I meant to do? Please inform my husband that his colleague has overstepped boundaries. I'm uncertain about their intentions, but their actions have made me feel uneasy. I lacked any evidence, merely an instinct. Instead, I compelled a smile to appear. "That sounds delightful." Mark smiled broadly. "Excellent, I will arrange it." The week that followed, I endeavored to put the entire matter out of my mind. I occupied my time with errands, reconnecting with old friends, and engaging in activities that distracted me from thoughts of Nathan. Suddenly, a text appeared, seemingly from nowhere. "Nathan. Greetings, Emily. I trust your day is going wonderfully. I can't shake off the thoughts from our conversation the other night." My stomach churned. I gazed at the message, my fingers poised above the keyboard. I might have overlooked it, ought to have overlooked it. Yet a part of me felt the need to clarify that what he believed was occurring was not the case. "Humi. Hello, Nathan. It seems there may have been a misunderstanding on your part. I am in a happy marriage, and I would be grateful if we could maintain a professional demeanor." I pressed send and exhaled, wishing that would conclude the matter. Moments later, my phone vibrated once more. "Nathan. Absolutely, Emily. I appreciate that. Merely stating a fact." Had circumstances taken another turn? I tightened my jaw. He continued on without pause. Chose not to reply. The double date took place 2 days later. I thought about backing out, crafting a reason, but I was wary of drawing attention. I arrived in a straightforward navy dress, doing my utmost to maintain a calm demeanor. Nathan and his wife Rachel were already settled in their seats when we got there. Rachel exuded warmth, her gentle voice and kind demeanor creating an aura of tenderness. She gazed at her husband as if he were the center of her universe. It caused a wave of unease within me. Nathan exuded his usual charm, weaving humor into the dialogue, ensuring the atmosphere remained vibrant, all while maintaining an air of nonchalance as if nothing had transpired. Yet I noticed it. The fleeting looks exchanged when eyes were averted, the subtle touch of his knee against mine beneath the table, the slight lean he took, just a tad too intimate as he passed me the wine bottle. Felt confined. At a certain moment during the evening, as Rachel and Mark engaged in conversation, Nathan leaned in and whispered softly, just for my ears, that I appeared even more beautiful when I felt nervous. I stood still. My heart raced in my ears, my body coiling with tension as I glanced at him. He wore a smirk, so subtle it was almost imperceptible. I was faced with two options. Either let it go, act as if it never occurred like I did previously, or put an end to this immediately. I inhaled deeply, then raised my voice so that Mark and Rachel could hear me. "Nathan, I believe it's not suitable for you to address me in that manner. A hush enveloped the table. Mark's head jerked upward. Rachel blinked, her mind swirling with uncertainty. And Nathan, he simply gazed at me, his smirk fading as the realization of my actions dawned on him. Mark scowled. "Excuse me." Nathan emitted a faint, strained chuckle. "It was merely a jest." "It certainly didn't feel like one," I replied with calm assurance. Rachel glanced back and forth, her brow knitting in concern. "Nathan." He swiftly shook his head, donning a smile. "It was merely a miscommunication. Let's keep this comfortable." Yet, the situation was undeniably uncomfortable, and I felt indifferent. Mark gazed at me, a mix of confusion and concern etched on his face. "Emily, are you all right?" As our gazes locked, I finally allowed him to glimpse the reality within me. I confessed that I wasn't sure I wanted to stay here any longer. Mark refrained from posing any further inquiries. He merely nodded and rose to his feet. "Let's proceed." Nathan parted his lips as though words were about to escape, yet I chose not to linger for his utterance. I picked up my purse, shot Rachel a remorseful glance, and exited the restaurant with my husband beside me. Uncertainty loomed over me, leaving me in suspense about what was to come. However, one thing remained certain. This was far from finished. The journey back in the car was filled with silence. Mark kept stealing glances my way, anticipating a response, yet I remained fixated on the window, my mind a chaotic web of thoughts. At last, as we entered the driveway, he began to speak. "Emily, what transpired back there?" I let out a breath, clutching my purse more firmly. "Help me express this in a way that feels right. Challenge me." His voice carried a softness, yet underneath it lay a hint of something deeper, perhaps concern or even a flicker of anger. I faced him, selecting my words with precision. "Nathan has been causing me discomfort." Mark's brow knitted in concentration. "Could you clarify what you mean?" I took a deep breath. That evening following dinner at our home, he seemed overly comfortable. The manner in which he brushed my hand, the intensity of his gaze upon me. I dismissed it as insignificant. A few days later he reached out to me, expressing that he couldn't shake off thoughts of our conversation. Mark's grip on the steering wheel grew more intense. And this evening I pressed on. He made an inappropriate remark towards me. I attempted to manage it by myself, but I came to understand that remaining silent would only allow it to continue indefinitely. Mark's jaw tightened, his knuckles paling in intensity. "Emily, why didn't you share this with me earlier?" I confessed, uncertain if it was merely a figment of my imagination. "I didn't want to create any issues for you at work since he's your colleague." Mark shook his head, his eyes shadowed with an emotion I seldom witnessed. "Vage, you are my partner for life. Your needs are the priority, without fail." His words constricted my chest, and for the first time that night, I sensed a release, as if I could finally draw in a breath. Yet this was far from finished. The following morning, I awoke to discover Mark already in the kitchen, a cup of foam in his hand, his expression tight with tension. "What seems to be the issue?" I inquired. He exhaled gently. "Nathan sent me a message. He's attempting to maintain a facade of normalcy, expressing a desire that the events of last night didn't stir up any unwarranted turmoil." I let out a derisive laugh. "Excessive theatrics. Incredible." Mark cast his gaze in my direction. "I wish for you to be free from this burden once and for all. I plan to have a direct conversation with him at work." Pause. "Do you really think so?" "He crossed a line," Mark declared with conviction. "On multiple occasions. This must be stated unequivocally. This is unacceptable." There was an unmistakable determination in his voice that indicated he wouldn't be dropping this anytime soon, and to be honest, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. That afternoon, while Mark was at work, I attempted to carry on with my day as normal, yet an unsettling sensation lingered, suggesting that something was on the horizon, that Nathan wouldn't simply fade away from this situation without a fight. Indeed, I was correct. At approximately 3 p.m., my phone vibrated. Nathan, I believe we may have started on the wrong note. May we have a conversation? Only the two of us. A shiver coursed through me. No response. Moments later, another message arrived. Nathan, let's go, Emily. Let's approach this with maturity. I clenched my jaw, my heart racing. The nerve. I have blocked his number. After that, I reached out to Mark. As Mark stepped through the door that evening, his weariness was evident, yet his resolve shone through. What transpired? I inquired as he placed his briefcase on the ground. He swept his fingers through his hair. I faced him head-on. I felt a surge of tension. Mark let out a sharp breath. Initially, he attempted to play it off as a joke, suggesting that I was being overly dramatic. However, I expressed my point unequivocally. He must not reach out to you again. Always. And if he even glances at you inappropriately, I'll ensure our superior is fully aware of his true character. I nibbled on my lip, and he simply came to terms with it. Mark's expression grew somber. Initially, no. He became quite protective. Claimed I was being absurd, that you were taking control of matters. Yet, I expressed my full trust in you to him, and thus concluded the conversation. A lump began to form in my throat. Did you actually go through with that? Indeed I did, he replied gently. Emily, I will forever be your unwavering support. No one should face challenges like this by themselves. An overwhelming wave of feeling surged through me. For days I felt confined, uncertain about how to navigate the situation, anxious about its impact on Mark. Yet here I was in our home, absorbing the steadfast conviction in his voice, and I experienced a sensation I hadn't felt in ages. Secure. I embraced him, pulling him close. Thank you very much. His lips gently brushed the crown of my head. Your gratitude is unnecessary when it comes to safeguarding you. For the first time in days, I found myself genuinely believing him. Yet, beneath the surface, an unsettling sensation lingered. Nathan was not one to easily retreat. I found myself questioning whether this was truly the end. I wished to think it had come to an end. Mark's warning was sufficient to ensure Nathan stepped away for good. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware of the truth. Indeed, I was correct. 2 days later, I found myself in the grocery store, maneuvering my cart through the produce aisle when I sensed it. An existence. A shadow hovering just a touch too near. I pivoted, and a wave of unease washed over me. Nathan. He lingered a short distance off, nonchalantly examining a line of apples as if he were merely passing through. Yet I was aware of the truth. The shop was situated on the other side of town from his workplace. He found himself in a place that offered no justification for his presence. My heart raced. I considered walking away, yet a part of me held firm, unwilling to reveal my trepidation to him. I straightened my posture, grabbed a bag of oranges, and pretended he was invisible. However, he clearly missed the subtle suggestion. Emily, he spoke with a certain ease. What a pleasant surprise to find you here. Chose not to reply. He moved in closer. There's no reason to be unkind. It seems there may have been a slight miscommunication between us. I pivoted to confront him, my heart racing. There is no confusion, Nathan. You have overstepped, and it's best if you keep your distance from me. His smile wavered. Let's get moving. There's no need for theatrics. Is it intense? My voice was steady and resolute. Reaching out to me after I've blocked your number. Arriving at this place. That's quite unusual, Nathan. His expression shifted, and for the first time I noticed it, the facade beginning to fade. You know, he said, tilting his head. Mark is quite fortunate. Exercise caution, Emily. A woman of your caliber certainly draws the eye. Not everything is favorable. A shiver coursed through me. This was more than mere persistence. This served as a cautionary note. I locked eyes with him, determined not to reveal the trepidation within me. Are you implying a threat towards me? Nathan raised his hands, that self-satisfied grin reappearing. Absolutely not. Simply noting something I've noticed. I pivoted and stepped away, my hands trembling. I left my cart behind and hurried to my car, securing the doors as soon as I settled in. My phone was in my hand before I even noticed I had taken hold of it. I reached out to Mark. Mark returned home sooner than he typically did that evening. He was furious. "Did he follow you?" he inquired, his tone strained with suppressed fury. "Indeed," I mentioned, "and he wasn't merely acting unsettling, Mark. He was attempting to instill fear in me." Mark let out a sharp breath, moving restlessly around the kitchen. "That's all there is to it. I've had enough of being polite." Gulp. "What will you do next?" He locked his gaze with mine. "I'm heading to see our boss. If that doesn't yield results, I will escalate the matter to HR. Nathan is not afforded this opportunity. Not for you. No one." For the first time since this began, I sensed a change within me. A burden eased, for I found companionship in this journey. Nathan attempted to diminish my strength, yet I remained unyielding. Not any longer. The following day, Mark submitted an official complaint to HR. Nathan must have come to the conclusion that he had overstepped, as by the week's end, he had stepped down from his position at the company. News traveled quickly, hinting at personal motivations and fresh prospects on the horizon. Yet Mark and I were aware of the reality. He had vanished. For the first time in weeks, I found the air filling my lungs once more. That weekend, Mark and I found ourselves on the back porch, captivated by the fading light of the sunset. "Are you all right?" he inquired, his fingers intertwining with mine. I gave a slight nod. "Indeed, I believe I've reached that point at last." Mark let out a breath, his thumb gliding gently over my hand. "I ought to have recognized it earlier." "I ought to have." I interrupted him. "No, he was the issue, not you. You were there for me in my time of greatest need. That is what truly holds significance." He drew me nearer, placing a gentle kiss upon my forehead. Without fail. I beamed, leaning my head against his shoulder. This entire experience had been a nightmare, yet it revealed something significant about myself, about Mark, and the strength we shared together. Nathan had attempted to rattle me. Ultimately, his actions served only to highlight the true strength that resided within me.